Welcome to the Creative Play and Podcast Network. Join us as we share our favorite RPGs, one-shot games, tabletop games, reviews of items, and convention panels, and other exciting things that we run into from time to time. Sit back and enjoy the show.
Hi, this is Kelly, aka Trixie from Ragnarok and Roll, a Scion to Ragnarok story, and Tilda Wimblewick from D&D Journey of the 5th Edition. First off, I would just like to say thank you to everyone for listening to our varied adventures, as well as for rating us on iTunes and RPGpodcast.com. If you haven't rated us yet, we would greatly appreciate it if you could. And if you're looking for more ways to support our efforts, we are now on Patreon, a great site where you can help us continue making more podcasts, as well as some special surprises for our patrons. If you can, please look us up at www.patreon.com/cppn. Every little bit helps. And again, thank you for listening.
Hey guys, Jim here with Creative Play and Podcast Network. Familiar. So, what familiar means to me is the trick of using familiar tropes, and make sure that you're using things that the players immediately grasp onto as the concepts. I mean, I'm a huge fan of making a big, built-out, drawn-out story that's way too deep that we have to reinvent every now and then. But what really helps in a game is when you keep things familiar to your players. And there is joy when a player will immediately go, ooh, this is just like blah, blah, blah. You know, and immediately they grab onto the familiar threads of the story and catch onto it. Now, I'm not saying use tropes for tropes' sake. Make sure that you're using tropes for a reason, so that way they understand the familiarity of, hey, this story reminds me of this. But don't use tropes as a handicap of just throwing something out there to throw something out there. Make sure it harkens to the player and brings things back for them to something that they know and love. Especially if you get to know your players well, you can really play that one off to pull their heartstrings, basically. Or even if your players give you some great background material, you can throw at the character something that's familiar of their own story. It's just like, Through the Mirror Darkly. They see a version of themselves in the person they're rescuing or the villain that they're fighting. That way they have the feels that basically when they're looking at it, they realize, hey, this, to me, I feel that this is very close, near and dear to something that I know. Especially, if you can, mirror the characters they played in other games. That's one that I really love doing, is taking someone's character, making a familiar copy of that character and throwing out into the world, tweaking it just enough so it's a little bit different. So if somebody always plays a goody paladin, throw a example of their character that's really familiar to their character, so that way they feel they want to help and aid this character along. So always use familiar things like tropes, and make sure if you're using tropes, you're using them for a reason. So that's what's going to work for me for August the 7th. Familiar.
Thank you for listening to D&D Journey of the 5th Edition, a member of the Creative Play and Podcast Network. And remember, be careful out there. There be dragons about.